I've read about some rare human mutations before, but this one? It's on another level. Scientists just discovered a genetic mutation so rare, it's believed to happen only once every 1,000 years. A mutation this rare should be impossible, but biology doesn't care about impossible. It happens anyway. And no one proves that better than Abby and Brittany Hensel. These two are living proof that biology doesn't play by the rules, and neither do they. Born on March 7, 1990, in Carver County, Minnesota, they arrived in this world already defying expectations. 2 heads, 1 body, 2 minds, 1 life. And against every odd imaginable, they've mastered it. Let's break it down. Abby controls the right side, Brittany the left. Walking, driving, playing sports. They don't just do it, they dominate it. Imagine 2 separate brains processing every movement in perfect sync. Your brain can barely handle parallel parking, and they're out here working a gas pedal and steering wheel at the same time. Legally, they even had to pass 2 separate driving tests. Their anatomy is a puzzle no textbook can neatly explain. 2 hearts, 2 stomachs, 2 spinal cords, yet only 1 liver and 1 reproductive system. Figure that one out. And get this, Abby's taller at 5 feet 2 inches, while Brittany's shorter at 4 feet 10 inches. Brittany's leg, shorter still. She literally has to stand on tiptoe to keep up. If that's not commitment, what is? Doctors, of course, had their own ideas when they were born. Separate them, risk everything. Their parents didn't even hesitate. The answer was no. And looking at them now, thriving, successful, proving every medical certainty wrong, seems like they made the right call. Fast forward to adulthood. They didn't just graduate high school. They walked out of Bethel University in 2012 with teaching degrees. Separate degrees. Same body, different credentials. You can already hear the confused HR department scrambling to update their files. Since 2013, they've been teaching primary school in Minnesota, specializing in math. Now here's where things get even more absurd. They have 2 teaching licenses but share 1 salary. 1 job, 1 paycheck. Tell me again how that makes sense. Then, in 2021, Abby got married. Army veteran Josh Bowling. The internet nearly imploded. A woman with 1 body but 2 minds now had a husband. And a stepdaughter. Some people couldn't handle it. How does that even work? What does Brittany think? People have questions. But here's the truth. The Hensels don't owe anyone answers. Their life, their rules. Of course, media swarmed them from the start. Oprah, Life magazine, and then their own TLC show, Abby and Brittany, in 2012. The world watched, fascinated, skeptical, and probably a little envious. Because while most people crumble under the weight of a single identity, these 2 have mastered duality in ways science can barely explain. And if you thought Abby and Brittany Hensel were an anomaly, you're wrong, because Deepak Paswan takes defying nature to an entirely different level. They called him the 8-limbed boy. Sounds like something out of mythology, right? But Deepak was no legend. He was born in Belhari, Bihar, with 4 extra limbs, 2 arms, 2 legs jutting straight out of his chest. And before you ask, no, they didn't move. They weren't his. They belonged to someone else. A twin. One that never fully formed, never got a chance at life, but somehow refused to let go. A parasitic twin. That's what the doctors called it. The stuff of medical nightmares. One twin thrives, the other doesn't. But instead of disappearing in the womb, it clings, fusing itself into the surviving body like a ghost that won't leave. The extra limbs didn't function, but they weren't lifeless either. They had blood flow. They had weight. They made every movement heavier, every step more difficult. And worst of all, they made Deepak a spectacle. In his village, reactions were mixed. Some saw him as divine. a living, breathing incarnation of Vishnu, the Hindu god with multiple limbs. Devotees flocked to him, desperate for blessings, touching his extra hands like they were sacred relics. Others, not so kind. They whispered, laughed, called him freak, devil, cursed. Imagine being 7 years old, trying to exist, while people argue whether you're holy or horrifying. Deepak's family had no illusions. They just wanted their son to have a normal life. But how? The extra limbs weren't just attached, they were part of him. Removing them wasn't a simple snip-and-stitch job. It was a gamble, a high-stakes, life-or-death kind of gamble. Then came Fortis Hospital in Bangalore into the picture, along with a team of 15 surgeons, months of planning, and one goal: to separate Deepak from his unwanted twin without destroying him in the process. The surgery wasn't just complex, it was unprecedented. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and Deepak wouldn't be waking up at all. But against every odd, against every risk, they pulled it off. When Deepak woke up, something incredible happened. He ran. For the first time in his life, he ran. No extra weight, no dragging limbs, no strange stares. Just a boy, finally free from the ghost of a twin who never lived. His father called it a miracle. And just when you think you've seen it all along comes Isla Kilpatrick Screeton, a child who, by all logic, shouldn't even exist. A mutation so unique, so unheard of, that she is, without exaggeration, the only known person on Earth to have it. That's right. In all of recorded history, no one else has been documented with Isla's specific variation of mandibuloacral dysplasia. She's a 1 in 8 billion anomaly. They call it Benjamin Button disease. Sounds like something out of a movie. But there's nothing fictional about what Isla faces. This disorder speeds up cellular aging, warping her body's development in ways that doctors can't predict, let alone reverse. Her bones, underdeveloped. Her jaw, too small to support proper breathing. Her skin, fragile, thinning like paper. Her organs, struggling to keep up. And yet her mind, sharp. Her personality, unmistakably vibrant. Isla may be fragile, but make no mistake, she's a fighter. Her birth was dramatic. Of course, it was. This girl wasn't going to enter the world quietly. Born prematurely at 36 weeks, she barely made it. Her airways betrayed her from the start, forcing doctors to put her in an induced coma for 5 days. 5 days. Imagine that. A newborn clinging to life, suspended in a medical limbo. And when she finally went home, did the nightmare end? Not even close. She choked. She turned blue. She was rushed back to the hospital, where specialists poked and prodded, baffled by what they saw. It took months before they even had a name for it. October 2017, her official diagnosis. But what does a diagnosis mean when no one else in medical history shares it? Her daily life? Anything but ordinary. She doesn't eat like other kids. A gastrostomy tube delivers high-calorie milk straight into her stomach. Solid foods? A rare treat. Speaking? Limited. But silence doesn't mean she can't communicate. Isla has mastered Mutation sign language, expressing herself with sharp, determined gestures. And then there's her body, the sheer fragility of it. At 2 years old, she weighed just 15 pounds. A weight most infants surpass in months, Isla carried for years. She doesn't get a break. She sees 12 specialists, attends up to 6 medical appointments a week. Her mother, Stacy, doesn't just care for her. She monitors her like a hawk. At night, Isla sleeps attached to a heart monitor, a constant reminder that even in rest, she is never truly safe. But Isla isn't the only one rewriting the rules of medical possibility. Let's talk about Lydie Ardilla. Born in Nava, Colombia, she was never supposed to walk. She was never supposed to live past 12. At least, that's what the doctors said. They were so sure. so confident, as if they'd mapped out her fate before she even had a chance to prove them wrong. Spoiler alert, she did. Her story began with heart surgery when she was just a baby. The doctors saved her life, or so they thought. What they didn't anticipate? A condition waking up inside her, waiting to change everything. Fibrous dysplasia. Ever heard of it? Probably not. It's rare. It's relentless. It replaces bone with fibrous, scar-like tissue, warping the body's structure from the inside out. And in Leedy's case, it had its sights set on her face. The result? An ever-growing transformation, an enlargement that couldn't be ignored. Not by doctors, not by strangers, and certainly not by Leedy. Imagine walking into a room and feeling every stare before you even say a word. Imagine growing up knowing that your face, your own reflection, will never stay the same. Now imagine doing all of that while being told you won't make it to adulthood. That's the weight Leedy carried. And yet, she refused to break. She endured the surgeries, the hospital stays, the whispered comments, the looks. And then, she flipped the script. She took the very thing that made her different and turned it into a message, a mission. But what if your face didn't just look different? What if it didn't move at all? For Christopher, that was a reality. He wasn't just stared at. He was analyzed, scrutinized, mistaken for something inhuman. AI, a glitch in the system, a fish boy. People didn't just look at him, they questioned whether he was even real. This is what it means to be born with Mobius syndrome. No facial expressions, no side-to-side eye movement, just a blank slate in a world that expects a smile, a frown, something, anything. But Christopher couldn't give them that. And because people fear what they don't understand, they turned on him. Childhood, a battlefield, friendship, a foreign concept, loneliness, his only constant companion. But at 16, everything changed. He stumbled upon something that should have been impossible, a surgery that could give him a smile. A price tag of $300,000 might as well have been a death sentence for that dream. But instead of sinking into despair, he saw it as a challenge. He needed money, a lot of it, and no one was going to hand it to him. So he built something, a business, from nothing. And it didn't just work, it exploded. $50,000 a month, more money than most people see in a year. The kind of success that forces the world to take you seriously. But something strange happened. With all this wealth, with the power to finally change his face, he realized something. He didn't need to. In 2020, he put himself out there. TikTok, a place notorious for tearing people apart. At first, he hid his face. Who wouldn't? The internet is ruthless. And when he finally showed himself, the comments were brutal. A AI-generated alien, a walking uncanny valley. But Christopher had been through worse. He didn't break. He laughed. He owned it. The world couldn't make him feel like less than human if he refused to believe it. Christopher proved that confidence isn't about how you look. It's about how you carry yourself. But what if your body was a battlefield? What if every movement, every touch, every single breath came with the risk of your own skin tearing apart? Meet Courtney. She was born with epidermolysis bullosa, EB if you want to keep it short. A condition so brutal it's nicknamed the worst disease you've never heard of. Why? Because it turns your skin into tissue paper. A slight bump, a blister, a scratch, an open wound, a wrong move, agony. There's no cure, no relief, just endless pain and a lifetime wrapped in bandages. And if that wasn't enough, EB wasn't done with her. It had one more card to play. Cancer. The kind that didn't just threaten her life, it took both her hands. Amputation. Just like that. As if she hadn't lost enough already. Most people would have given up. Most people would have let the world win. Courtney, she adapted. She fought back. She refused to be a victim. Instead, she built something. Coco and Shay, a brand designed not just for survival, but for people like her to actually live. She knew what it was like to feel trapped in your own body, and she was determined to change that. And through it all, she never stopped pushing forward. No hands, no problem, no cure, irrelevant, no mercy from life. Too bad she was taking what she wanted anyway. Courtney proved that strength isn't just about endurance. It's about refusing to let life dictate your limits. But what if the battle wasn't just about pain? What if it was about identity itself? About choosing between the way you look and the way you sound? That was the choice Zachary Brown had to make. Born with a cystic hygroma, a rare growth that distorted his face, he had the chance to remove it. But there was a catch. The surgery could take his voice forever. No more speaking, no more laughter, no more him. Just silence. And for Zach, that price was too high. So he kept the hygroma, kept the stares, kept the whispers. And let's be real, it wasn't easy. He hid behind video games where no one could see him, no one could judge. 14 hours a day, lost in a world where appearance didn't matter. He had the ultimate setup, $5,000 worth of screens, controllers, and an escape from reality. Then one day, he was done. Just like that. No more hiding, no more avoiding mirrors. He sold it all, every last piece of that digital fortress. And where did he go? The gym. The place where confidence isn't bought, it's built. Rep by rep, set by set. He forged something new. Strength. Discipline. A body that matched the fighter inside. Zach proved that transformation isn't just physical. It's a choice. A decision to face the world exactly as you are. But let's talk about someone whose very existence defies logic. Someone who was never supposed to take a single breath. Someone whose heart isn't just strong, it's visible. Beating. Right there in front of you. Versavia Borun Goncharova wasn't born like everyone else. She wasn't even built like everyone else. She has pentalogy of Cantrell, a condition so rare it barely exists in medical textbooks. Fewer than 1 in a million are born with it. The odds? Laughable. Yet, here she is, breathing, living, fighting. Her heart isn't locked away behind a rib cage like yours. It's right there, under nothing but a thin layer of skin. You could literally see it beat. Her intestines, also outside her body. She is, by all logic, exposed. Fragile. A single wrong move, a single accident, she wouldn't stand a chance. But she does. Every day. Doctors told her mother, Dari, that there was no hope, that Versavia would never make it. Russia couldn't help her. No one could. But giving up? Not an option. So they packed up and left, chasing a future that didn't exist yet. Boston Children's Hospital assessed her, but the truth was brutal. Surgery was out of the question. Her blood pressure was too high, too risky, too dangerous. So now she waits in Hollywood, Florida, where every heartbeat is a reminder of what medicine still can't explain. She takes medications to lower her blood pressure, hoping that one day surgery will be an option. Until then, every illness, every infection, every moment is a gamble. No insurance, no guaranteed future. Just a mother fighting against the impossible. Katie Renfro was born with a condition so rare, it doesn't even have a name. In a world where scientists have mapped the human genome and classified diseases down to their molecular structure, this, whatever this is, has left them speechless. The only thing they're sure about? Megalencephaly, a disorder where the brain doesn't just grow, it overgrows. But that's only a piece of the puzzle. Katie's case is different. The symptoms don't match. The patterns don't add up. Every time doctors think they're onto something, the answers slip through their fingers. Her mother, Angie, has spent years demanding explanations, answers, a name, anything. But the truth? There is no name. Not yet. The experts have stopped trying to compare Katie to any known disorder. Instead, they're considering something else. They might name it after her. Katie Renfro's case defied medical logic. But even when doctors think they have a name for something, even when a condition is documented, studied, classified, it doesn't mean they have control over it. And no one knows that better than Miriam and Mia. Identical twins. But not the kind people daydream about in matching outfits, finishing each other's sentences. No, these girls were born into war. Their enemy? Osteogenesis imperfecta, a genetic disease that makes bones so fragile, so paper-thin, that even the slightest wrong movement can lead to a fracture. Imagine breaking a bone just by sneezing. That's their reality. By the time they entered the world, they were already shattered. Fractures everywhere, shoulders, arms, legs. Their parents, Rayan and Mohammad, weren't given false hope. They weren't given any hope. The doctors didn't sugarcoat it. The message was clear. Don't get attached. And then they survived. Barely. Twice, their parents braced for the worst. Twice, they thought their daughters wouldn't live to see another day. And yet, somehow, the twins held on long enough to be transferred to specialists who actually believed in them. Suddenly, the unthinkable happened. Progress, strength, a future. Months in the NICU, surgeries, metal rods implanted inside their tiny bones just to keep them from snapping like twigs. Infusions, therapy after therapy after therapy. But now, they're 4 years old. And despite everything, despite the odds that were stacked so high against them, they are alive. Not just alive, thriving. No oxygen tubes, no feeding tubes. They can sit, they can roll, they can move. Rayan and Mohammed were told their daughters might not make it through the week, and now they're watching them grow into kids who are laughing, playing, and building a life alongside their baby brother, Yusuf. Sure, Miriam and Mia had bones that could break with a whisper, but even bones can be reinforced. Even the most fragile things can be strengthened. Not everyone gets that chance. Some conditions don't just threaten the body, they challenge a person's entire existence. How do you live in a world that refuses to see you as human? Which genetic mutation do you think is the rarest? Maybe there's more we haven't heard about.